Hi, my name is Mike Keeler. Today I'm going to talk about churchgoers on the decline. What does it mean for our society, and what can we do about it? I became interested in this when I was looking at a Pew study, no pun intended. It was showing an 8% decline across all denominations for churchgoers between 2007 and 2014. During that same period, people who self identified as no affiliation were up almost 7%. Now, what does this have to do with religion? This has a lot to do with religion because I believe it's the one thing left that can save the family unit. In the past, we had an agrarian society. A lot of people had farms. There was the nuclear family. Religion and local culture shaped that family unit, and the morals and the work ethic was handed down through generations. Now, we have 43% of kids in the U.S. live without a father. 90% of homeless and runaway kids are from fatherless homes. 71% of pregnant teenagers lack a father. 63% of youth suicides are from fatherless homes. 71% of high school dropouts come from fatherless homes. 70% of juveniles in state-operated institutions have no father. And fatherless boys and girls twice as likely to drop out of high school, twice as likely to end up jail, 4 times more likely to need help for emotional or behavior problems. And to me, this is shocking. It should be to you too. What I have here, what I'm doing, is I have a plan that I am going to present to Bishop Matano, the chair leader of the Catholic Diocese of Rochester. And what this is all about is, first of all, we mentioned the stats are showing declines in nearly every metric in Christian society. On the Catholic front, seminary entrants, priests, nuns, parishioners, all down. And where's the problem coming from? The way I see it, it has many facets. First of all, the governing council, if you will, the U.S. Catholic Council of Bishops, is divided. There's absolutists and there's liberals. The very, very opposite. The absolutists want to revert back to pre-Vatican practices and ways. The liberals want to move forward into areas that I don't even know what they want to do. The real problems, though, we have a lack of attendance. This creates lack of finances. And the lack of finances caused 13 schools in 2008 to close in the Rochester area. Now, couple this with household incomes not increasing, in fact, they're decreasing, but stuff costs more. And all this is important because now these folks have to send kids to public schools because they can't afford private schools. Now, Catholic schools, statistics show, means more Catholic adults in the pews. They also provide a consistently much better education than public schools do. These are all statistically valid. So what I'm seeing here is a massive opportunity to be able to make a corrective problem, to correct this problem. Other areas where we need a little help. The Catholic policy that we see towards the gay and lesbian community comes off very judgmental. Would make them feel unwelcome, and that's really the exact opposite of what it should be. And any one person that you talk to would believe that. We're not talking about changing values and changing canon law for that matter. We're talking about not making judgments against a person and making them feel welcome. With respect to feeling welcome, I realized my mother grew up in Ireland. My father almost became a priest. He actually graduated from St. Bernard Seminary here locally. And so a lot of my, values come from that time, that actually from the pre-Vatican times. And if you ever walk into an older church, a church of older construction, it's designed to be sacred, serene, and personal. Because, in the pre-Vatican times, church was a destination where you went to give reverence to God. And that's, there's a lot of older folks that still go to church and feel that way. However, a lot of folks nowadays, very different, very, very different thoughts on that. And it made me think of when I lived in Georgia, I was invited to a Baptist church, and I went. And the first thing I realized was when I walked into the church, it was actually a forward vestibule, and there was tons of people all around. Everybody was happy talking. It was like being at a hockey game or something. But almost, I would say by design, there was people that came up and greeted and made small talk, made me feel welcome ultimately. And in a direct contrast, if I go to church here in the area, and especially if I don't know anybody, I don't know that I feel welcomed. I definitely don't feel welcomed like that. And even the Catholic churches in Georgia were the same way. They would have some masses that were geared toward kids that, I don't want to say they were geared toward kids, but they were geared toward families, really. They were more inviting. They were a lot less of the old school, say, and more open, more inviting, more energy. And so the one thing I want to mention to this point is that some of the points I've made were directed to the more broad Christian society in America. I am Catholic, so what my plan is going to consist of is a plan for starting with Catholic Church and getting people back in. Now, in putting this plan together, I realized a couple of things. Number one, to preface everything, the church has to make a couple of considerations. Number one, you have to step outside into the secular world. You have to reach out to folks to be able to, put a hand on them and guide them here. And I suggest, the lay people, not the clergy, but the lay people are the ones that initiate this. So, with that, what I propose is, first things first, start on the single parish scale. One thing that I would like to see is where to start, what parish, probably an active parish, to start. What we would do is form a committee, and the committee would be folks that are all non-clergy and would have liaison to go back to the diocese with, the reports. The objectives, the first objective, I should say, would be the schools. Like I said before, schools are a huge opportunity, and we need to capitalize that. Moving forward, there's 3 specific categories that need attention, and that will ultimately bring everything together. First being stewardship. Stewardship being, service in the church that it ultimately should bring a person closer to God. We need to promote this, and the clergy needs to allow this to happen. Social would be the second. There's social efforts. That's a big part. They require a lot of effort. Many people don't really understand if you put something together, you can't just throw an ad up a couple of weeks in advance and expect it's going to happen. It's really a lot of work to make sure it happens and goes down flawlessly. And lastly, charity, especially group charity. I have a construction background, so I think of the Habitat people. I can't think of who they are now in a second. Um, but something that is again partly social, brings some people together. It also puts a little bit of an advertisement out for us. Now, what kind of timetables would we see to make this happen? What I would want to see is by the end of August we have a parish selected. By the end of September, we've drawn members and formed a committee. And by the beginning of October, we should have our first session where we plan basically the rest of the year out. As far as what we would need, no staff would be required from the diocese, with the exception of somebody designated as a liaison. As for operating capital, we expect we'd be self-sufficient. We might ask for a loan, but ultimately we'd be self-sufficient. Donations would be accepted. That's always nice. Now, while this could certainly be an independent venture, I wouldn't really want to do this without the bishop's blessing on it. I would rather have this done with the authentication of the diocese, the church, to make this happen. And that is my presentation. Thank you.